Caliban and Arterius were victorious from their hunting trip, as the large flatbed truck trundled out of the woods. Arterius, dwarfed by the size of what was essentially a gigantic elephant, gingerly rode on top of its corpse like a scared cat as Caliban drove the vehicle through the crackling brush of the forest. The machine and its cargo, as if this were an everyday occurrence, casually trundled onto the tarmac and parked next to the pot. Arterius, sitting atop the beast's corpse like a petrified kitten, failed to respond to anything as Caliban started carving it up. "You know, I'm gonna need a bigger pot for this. I wonder if I can marinate some steaks," Caliban idly said to himself as he began carving through the beast's tough flesh. Everyone around him stared with pure shock and awe as he not only casually carved up his prize, but also carved through it with ease, with a highly specialized blade. Caliban barely considered everyone's current state as he started chopping up the massive 25-ton beast. The meat was deep red and smelled similar to pork. It was thick, gamey, very muscular, but Caliban expertly carved through its flesh with no effort. It took him a full day, with help from one of the elder dragons who used his giant claws to hold the beast and move it around for easier access. The giant elephant creature was systematically disassembled, each portion of its meat on certain parts of the body calmly sorted through and wrapped for later, or carved up into small bits in a stew Cal was preparing. Most of the beast was put into cold storage, its pelt left to soak in tannin for use in leather making and other things. About a quarter of its meat, however, was put into a large pot, in which was a hearty, thick stew. The smell of blood and fur quickly dissipated as Caliban worked, the strong smell of beef stock, vegetables, and other tasty things slowly coming together. The dragons, people, and even the students started to ignore the fact Caliban just effortlessly killed one of the most dangerous beasts on the planet, and instead started to salivate uncontrollably at the smell of the stew pot. Cook the meat, sear it in a pan until brown, then put in a stew pot. Carrots, potato chunks, onions, a little bit of paprika to give it a kick because reasons. Ooh, spring onions too. Oh damn, I need to make bread and rice too. I can do that while waiting for the stew to simmer. Just slow, soft, maybe an hour. Stir occasionally. Ooh, this is gonna be good, Caliban idly said to himself as he worked. Caesar, the older dark dragon, was likewise salivating in hunger at the sights and smells emanating from the gigantic brass pot. He had, since this all started, slowly clawed his way through the brush and into the open, likely the first time he had done so in decades, his black and silver scales shimmering in the moonlight. The smell wafted over the whole base through the entire crater, into the caves, bringing out even more dragons to the dinner, even the baby dragons fresh out of their eggs. Dragon mothers were never seen outside their caves, especially during the season, so everyone stepped aside and allowed a dragon female and her clutch of tiny dragon babies through to wait at the front of the line. Caliban ignored the world and just simply cooked food. So engrossed was he in his job, he failed to notice Lorelei and the Lady Soraya approaching, with Lorelei being held up as she limped alongside her new elven friend. Lorelei looked fresh out of the pod, her nanofiber uniform still wet with pod goo. "Hey, hun! Look! I can walk!" Lorelei squealed happily as she got closer. Caliban glanced up from his cooking work. The sight of Lorelei there, not only standing but without her pod gear, made him shift through a dozen emotions in milliseconds. Lorelei approached, carefully and softly limped towards him under her own power for a few seconds. Caliban dropped everything, literally, and with more speed than anyone could imagine, charged towards her. He scooped her up in his arms and hugged her close, squeezing her tight, maybe a bit too tight. She squeaked in a momentary pain, and likewise wrapped her still weak arms around him. Soraya looked on and noticed Lorelei's momentary squeal of pain, but tried to stay back as far as she could. Caliban, for the first time in over a decade, could hear his wife's heartbeat. He didn't squeeze harder but deeper, feeling her chin on his shoulder for the first time in far too long. Lorelei just let him hold her. Everyone just stayed quiet, watching the moment. However, Lady Soraya wasn't quite done and tried to approach. As soon as her heeled foot touched the floor, Caliban snapped his eyes open and glared at her. A strange, almost hateful glint appeared as he snapped his fingers. From the towers around the base, strange structures deployed from turret hardpoints. A potent purple and white electrical energy coiled around each one, and in a split second, a web of directed lightning bolts suddenly lit up the crater and blasted chunks of rock out of the stone walls. This was Caliban's way of supplying a warning. Lady Soraya quickly backed away and held her hands up to calm him down. A few seconds passed and Lorelei giggled weakly at the display. "Hun, you do know you can relax, right?" she said weakly with a happy tone in her voice. "Just a few more minutes. Please," Cal said. His tone had completely shifted. His voice was calm, soft, almost as if all his hatred for the world disappeared for that moment. "Okay, but I'm not quite there yet, okay? I got a lot to go and I can't be out too long. You gotta be gentle still, and not just to me," Lorelei said. "The world can wait. Please don't go. I need you," Cal meekly said into her ear, sounding as if he was about to cry. Lorelei smiled and hugged him back for another minute or so. After what seemed hours, but was in fact only minutes, Lorelei finally pulled away from him, prompting him to let her go. With reluctance, the two separated but held hands together. Lorelei just smiled at him, looking at the life returning to his eyes. Caliban snapped his fingers again, and the lightning coils retracted back into their hardpoints. Everyone around the area still held their breath as Lady Soraya once again attempted to approach. Caliban's demeanor changed almost instantly as she got close, brandishing his fingers menacingly. She stopped a few feet from them and spoke as calmly as she could, considering how she almost wet herself a few seconds ago. "Master Caliban, she is not yet healed. It will take time to get her back to health, but even then, extended periods of stay in her pod will still be needed. I must unfortunately ask you to let her go, at least for a little while. I promise I'll bring her back before dinner," she said, every word a terrified tremor. "Damn right you promise," Cal replied coldly. "Hun! Stop being rude now. Because of that you get no kiss," Lorelei giggled. Caliban hung his head in shame. "I'm sorry." Apology accepted. Lorelei giggled and kissed him. Just a gentle smoochie, just for fun. Wasn't so hard, was it? "Come on. You gotta cook stuff. I gotta go rest. I'll see you in the morning, okay?" Caliban merely nodded, giving her a kiss in return. Lorelei limped back to Lady Soraya, and the two gingerly made their way back to the main hangar. Caliban returned to his cooking, though with a strangely out-of-place smile and skip in his step. His personality had suddenly shifted from cold, cynical, sarcastic, and enraged to strangely calm and stoic. He stirred his pot of stew and baked his loaves of bread. Caliban took notes of everything he needed for future use and likely, for the first time in decades, started to think about everything around him. Cal finished cooking and started doling out the stew. Large bowls full of 2 pounds worth of rice, covered in a thick 1.5-gallon serving of the tasty stew. Potatoes, onion, a little bit of baby carrot, Caliban's secret spice and flavorings, all coming together with a full loaf of bread. The tension in the air dissipated almost instantly as Caliban started serving the crowd. The newcomers, Silver Dragons and Caesar as well, stepped forward and were shown what to do and how exactly to eat the food politely with the utensils given to them. Centuries, years, hell, even hours before this moment, one would see a deathly war being fought between the dark dragons and the mountain dragons. But now here they were, strangely quiet, enjoying one of the most decadent, delicious meats in a hearty, healthy stew together, calm and peaceful. Caliban eventually finished supplying his customers, including the baby dragons with their own little servings and baby dragon-sized loaves of bread. Cal allowed everyone to simply eat their food while he started typing on his wearable computer to do something. After a while, most of the dragons, Caesar included, were in various states of post-food binge malaise, rolling about on the ground, bellies in the air, and wings lazily draped over the ground. Cal simply wandered about and took notes, looking at various spots around the factory while typing on his wearable. Eventually, Caliban came to a conclusion and approached Arterius, who was flat on his back. "Hey, Art, are you using the south side of the crater for anything?" Cal asked. "Not in particular, no." "Why ask?" Arterius responded with a loud belch. "I need space for expansion and upgrades. I also need to install a bigger reactor. I need to move things around and park some vehicles I have around. I have a big list of shit I need to do. You okay with me expanding to the south edge?" Cal asked, occasionally typing on his wearable. "No issues. Need help digging?" Arterius replied as he rolled back onto his feet. Not really. I have the gear I need. I just need permission. You're home, after all. Need to move some vehicles out of storage. Might contract the girls to help with this. Teach them how to use heavy construction equipment, if nothing else. Maybe teach them some advanced mining techniques. For fun, but I need to move a vehicle from the back storage lot. That's important. Need to get it to a safe spot, ready for launch anyway. Cal replied and started to work. What vehicle would this be exactly? And why do you need to move it for launch? Launch what exactly? Arterius asked, curious as he followed Cal across the tarmac. Vintage collectible from way back during something called the Cold War. Inherited it from my great-grandfather back before all this happened. Nobody questioned its deployment, so, yeah. I miraculously still have it, Cal said, as he rounded the corner and headed towards a specific, very large object covered in a protective nanofiber tarp. Oh, that's big. Larger than any other vehicle here. What does this one do? Arterius asked. Although the vehicle itself was very large, Arterius was still bigger than it by a good lick, and Art towered over the tarp, looking at it curiously. A relic from one of the most embarrassing political conflicts in human history in the convenient form of a large-scale carry vehicle, Cal said as he started removing the tarp. The covering removed, showing a strange rectangular box-like truck, with the strangest structure the dragons had yet seen from the humans. It looked like a flat hot dog on a bun, a large flatbed truck, dominated by a huge cylinder on top, supported by 8 sets of huge tires that had some kind of strange opposing steering system. The driver's seat was also weird, with 2 separate control cabins at the front. Caliban got into the driver's seat and the roar of the engine echoed through the crater. Cal drove it gingerly and with extreme care through the crater, forcing some dragons to move aside. Caliban parked it near some lightning towers and other defensive equipment, in front of a large tent-like structure painted to look like the floor underneath it. Cal stopped it and began the process of deploying the machine's equipment. What are you up to now? And what even is this thing? Arterius asked. A Russian Strategic Rocket Forces MZKT 79,221 missile vehicle, carrying an RT-2 PM-2 Topple-M, an ancient relic from back in the day that, where I came from, was almost universally ignored due to the bigger, badder, better weapons tech that surrounded it. Back home, I wouldn't be able to turn this thing's engine on without 500,000 sensor stations half a galaxy away, suddenly turning every gun in the area onto it. So since I got it, it's basically been sitting there collecting dust as little more than a slightly radioactive museum piece, Cal replied as he deployed struts out of its sides. Okay, what does it do? What's that thing it's carrying? Arterius asked. It carries a nuclear weapon, Cal replied frankly as he finished deploying all the struts. Nuclear weapon, why does that sound familiar? Arterius said to himself. Because if you were paying attention to that movie presentation, this is the same thing that makes those pretty mushroom clouds, Cal said with far too much glee. Arterius visibly turned pale, his scales and skin rapidly changing color to a slight pink hue. Caliban, meanwhile, continued smirking casually as he deployed the machine, the large tube in the middle rising to vertical position. Caliban inspected the mechanisms, cleaned some of the hydraulic lines, and checked the warheads inside, the ominous clicking of a Geiger counter echoing through the crater as he checked the seals and warheads. Technically speaking, I'm not supposed to have this, let alone have it fully ready to be armed and ready to fire. This isn't the usual warhead this thing came with. No, it's a Starship-grade hydrogen fusion warhead installed here. Nowhere near as potent as the stuff back home, but closer actually to weapons from the 21st century. And in any case, I can't launch it. It uses satellites for navigation, not an easy fix. So even if I fire it, it won't go anywhere except up. But better safe than sorry. Inspection's done and everything's fine, so can put it away until we need it, Caliban said as he started packing it again. Let us pray we never need it, Arterius replied with a squeak of terror. Amen to that, Cal said, and quickly finished packing it away under the tarp again. I was originally going to convert it into a mobile hot tub, then I noticed it had an active warhead in it. Hard to do that when you don't know how to safely dispose of nuclear material. Then I realized it was a fusion warhead, no less, and decided to just clean it and leave it alone. Told the feds about it, of course, but they never did anything about it. They just said keep it clean and don't nuke anyone, then got back to worrying about the Europa crisis, I guess. Anyway, let's go fetch our students. It's time to teach them how to diggy hole with biggie shovel.